Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Boring Pod. My name is Nick Marovets,
I'm Alex Redden.
and we have been hosting our own YouTube sports show for 5 months now. Today, we're going to be recapping the NHL and NBA playoffs. And speaking of the NBA playoffs,
We got some games.
We
got
do.
a big game tonight out in the West. We have the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Golden State Warriors. Big game. We see LeBron versus Steph again. When it was 2016 to 2018, it's like, okay, we've seen enough of these guys.
Yes.
But now, 5 years later, it feels like this is what we want to see. We want to see one last go-around for Steph and LeBron playing up against each other.
it seems like they're both playing at very high levels right now as well. You hate to see stars kind of falling off towards the ends of their careers, but both of these guys have been putting up numbers. I mean, we saw Steph Curry put up 50 in Game 7. That's a Game 7 high in the NBA record books, as well as LeBron. He didn't necessarily carry the Lakers through that Memphis series, but he was definitely present.
Absolutely. It's like, it was weird because it felt like both the Lakers and the Warriors, like, even 3 months ago, were both like, will they make the playoffs,
Yep.
And now it's like both teams are playing very, very good. Both teams have a lot of, like, senior leadership. They have a lot of vets on the team on both sides. So I think this is just going to be a really, really fun series. Hopefully we get, like, 6 games out of it.
That'd be awesome. I know.
Go ahead. It's on me.
No, I just know that the public is also very excited to see this game. Game 3 in LA is very expensive. The most expensive ticket I saw was over $31,000, and
That's insane.
I know I won't be in attendance, but if you are, props. 'Cause that's
Open the
impressive.
checkbook.
Yeah, no kidding.
No, I mean, Golden State, I believe, is probably favored in this series. If I had to guess, that would make sense to me. They're favored tonight, at least. They're at -4.5 right now. I feel like that's a fair line.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. One thing about the Lakers to keep in mind is that they're very well spread, if you will.
Yep.
Like the last 5 games of the series against Memphis, a different guy had the most points. So, I mean, it's kind of a group attack from the Lakers, and then obviously you have to be extremely scared of Steph. Did you see Steph's record against LeBron in the playoffs?
I have not. What is it?
It's like 16-7.
Ooh,
So he's got the upper hand there. So that's something to keep an eye out for as well.
I am personally rooting for Golden State to win this series.
Oh, 100%.
I can't stand LeBron. I kind of liked him against Memphis just because Dylan Brooks is an idiot. But Golden State is just more fun, I feel like, to watch.
Yes, very fun, very like long shot kind of. Obviously, like I'm talking deep threes, not necessarily odds wise.
Yeah.
But they're very fast paced as opposed to the Lakers feel a little bit more of a methodical type of approach.
Exactly. But then in the West, we also have another good series. We have Denver versus Phoenix.
Yes.
Denver currently leads 2-0.
That's an interesting thing about the playoffs in the NBA is they can get kind of staggered like that. So we're seeing our first game out of the Lakers and Warriors tonight, and we're already moving on to Game 3 in the Suns Nuggets series.
That's one of those things. It's like, I know a lot of people don't like Phoenix. Me personally, I want to. I just can't fully like them. I think that's because, like, say 3 years ago, right, when it was just Devin Booker and like DeAndre Ayton,
Yes.
and it was just those guys running like pick and rolls. That was a very fun team to watch.
Yes.
Now they add KD, and now it's like, they have Chris Paul, another player that's like, not exactly a fan favorite guy.
Yes.
And it's like, maybe we do want Denver to win this as America.
Yeah, I know personally I'm not the biggest fan of Denver, but I also am not a huge fan of the Suns after they traded away 2 of their biggest, I would say, locker room guys or fan favorites, if you will. And I think it was Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to root for either team in this series. To be honest, really all I'm hoping for is a Game 7. Right?
Yeah.
I just want good basketball out of it. I don't really care who moves on because they'll be facing the winner of Lakers, right?
Yeah.
Lakers Warriors. Yeah, and so I mean, as long as the Warriors move on, I really don't care who they have to beat.
Ideally, me personally, I'd love to see the Warriors and Phoenix both advance.
Then you got KD and Steph.
Correct.
Yep.
Which would just be awesome to see like how that plays out, because it's like, Steph has 4 rings, 2 of them are with KD.
Right.
It's like, okay, if Steph gets another ring and KD doesn't, that really shakes up, I think how we look at both of these guys' career.
100%. It's definitely going to lean the scale in Steph's direction.
Absolutely. And then if we look at the east side of the bracket, we're looking at Philly and Boston. That's 1-0. Philly leads. They stole one, I would argue. 1-1 game 1 in Boston.
That's huge.
Without their best player, Joel Embiid.
Correct.
Arguably, probably, either him or Joker, MVP frontrunners.
100%.
So that felt like a game that Philly stole. And now game 2, they can probably realistically just rest everyone.
Yeah.
Just rest everyone.
Doesn't even matter what happens. You already got your game on the road.
If they can get back to Philly and the series is tied 1-1, that's mission accomplished.
That's huge.
Philadelphia.
That's huge. Getting back to Philly up 2-0 would be unfathomable. Like that would be huge. I know James Harden absolutely popped off in that game, and that's not something you can always count on. So I would say they're in a very good spot being up 1-0.
I would agree. You can't ask for much more if you're Philly. And then we got Miami, the Heat versus the New York Knicks.
Correct.
Series that me personally, I don't care about too much, really. It's just kind of like whatever.
Yes.
I think ideally I'd like to see Miami win.
Right. They were the 6th, 8th seed to beat a 1 seed, I think, something like that, in the history of the NBA. Quick little trivial fact for you. This is the first time in NBA history that a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 seed have all made the conference semifinals, which is kind of a neat little thing there. But obviously I'm rooting for the Heat here. But Jimmy Butler is officially ruled out for game 2.
Correct.
So that is, their star player for the Heat. That's a very important person to be sitting.
I agree, but part of me is Miami also won in New York, and it's like if this was Game 7, I think Jimmy buckets he'd be playing.
Yes,
but it's like okay, we got one in New York. We're going to be going back to Miami at least series tied.
Yep,
we might as well rest him and
100%.
have him for the next 5 games versus risking anything having him go Game 2. I think that Philly should also take the same approach of that. Is like okay, we won our game on the road. Let's rest our best players and be ready to go for Game 3.
100%. I don't think that these are series where you need to go up 2-0 on the road. I think you can definitely get out of there 1-1 and be in a comfortable position.
What's crazy is and it feels like it's like the Bucks are out now. 2 seed in the West is out. So really the only 2 teams that are left in the playoffs that are like these 2 teams are the teams that everyone thought would be here is Denver and Boston.
Correct.
The other 6 teams, it's kind of like, oh, nice.
I think
they made it.
It's interesting because I think the Warriors are someone that they just win, right?
Correct.
So a lot of people didn't necessarily expect them. The Kings were, I would say, significantly better, but no one's surprised.
Yeah.
So I know what you're saying there. It's been a fun playoffs thus far.
Absolutely. And I saw a stat the other day, and if you guys remember back in the 2015 to 2019 Golden State run, when they were just dominating everyone, it felt like they were traditionally known as the third quarter team.
Yes.
They came out of the locker room and they were always juiced up and ready to go. And their stats in the third quarter were always just off the rails.
Right.
The last, I believe, 2 games that they played when they played against Sacramento, I want to say in the third quarter they were plus 24.
That's impressive.
Between the 2 games.
Yes.
And people are saying the third quarter Warriors might be back.
That would be huge. That would be
if they're back,
very big.
I don't know. If they're back, I think they win. They win it all.
I 100% agree. I think the West, obviously, the Clips being out is a big shift in who's left as far as powerhouses go.
Yeah.
And the Suns were supposed to be this championship favorite back in February when they picked up KD, and they're already down 0-2. So I think this is. I'm not going to go so far to say the Warriors' title to lose, but I'd say the door's wide open.
Absolutely. And I think the Golden State matches up with Phoenix really well, I think.
Yes.
They're the same as Phoenix, but with just more rounded, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And Denver would be interesting, but I just don't think that Denver can guard all 5 shooters that Golden State has. Golden State can just score at will, and they play aggressive-ish, scrappy defense, especially with Draymond on the court. You never know what's going to happen. Love or hate the guy, he's one of the best defenders, arguably, ever.
He is a very good defender, and it's something that Golden State has to their advantage. Does that leave any games that we need to cover in the NBA side of things?
That does not. I think that brings us to the NHL.
All right, well, I will take the NHL here real quick. We have got a super exciting Elite 8, if you will. We can go ahead and start with the Panthers-Leafs, all right? And the cool thing about the NHL playoffs is that all of these series are at Game 1. We'll have 2 tonight and 2 tomorrow, and then they alternate as per usual. So, Panthers-Leafs. Panthers obviously beat Boston, the number 1 regular season team of all time, arguably. Most wins, most points, biggest point differential. And then the Leafs, okay? So the Leafs beat the Lightning, who are the 3-time, I can't say 3-time, but they've been to the finals 3 times in a row, which is a pretty big deal. The Leafs have arguably the second best season this year. They were a very solid team, and they were just plagued by never being able to get out of the first round since like 2004. So now that they're out of the first round, I think these are a very scary group of guys. And I think the Panthers, they eked out a Game 7 win, and I was telling the guys, Game 7, the field is just completely level. So I'm not giving the Panthers too much credit here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Leafs in 5.
I agree. I mean, to me, it's like I don't follow hockey a ton. I would say that Toronto's my team just because they're the Maple Leafs, and that's just kind of a funny little goofy team name.
100%.
But like you said, they've been cursed in round 1 for, pretty much my entire
20 years.
lifetime.
Yeah.
And now that they're out of round 1, at the same time, you have to think, though, okay, this is still the Maple Leafs.
Right.
Are they cursed in round 1, or are they just
cursed
very bad in, series,
Yes.
So that worries me a little bit, especially, Florida played incredible against Boston, it felt like. They did everything that they had to do to win, which is about all you can ask when you're going up against a team like the Boston Bruins.
Correct.
So I wouldn't count Florida out, but I do like Toronto to win this series.
It's interesting because the Panthers could be considered the Cinderella of this, at least, as well as the Leafs, because the Leafs, they were very good, but no one expected them to get out of the first round due to that curse. But the real Cinderella is going to come in the West Side as well. Well, the Panthers-Leafs is East.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the West Side. We've got Kraken Stars.
Yep.
And the Kraken, it's their second year in the league, and they defeated the Avalanche, who are the defending champions. So this is a big deal.
Yep.
I've watched a couple Kraken games this year, and the thing that it caught my eye early is they played playoff speed hockey all year. They were fast. They were physical. They did everything they had to do. Stars beat the Wild, not necessarily anything to write home about, and I think the Kraken have an unbelievable amount of momentum going into the series.
I agree. The Kraken, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they're a young team. They play very fast. They play very hard, inexperienced. But when you get in the playoffs, especially in hockey, I feel like more than other sports, it's like the guy who's going 115 miles an hour, a lot of times that will trump more experience.
Yes.
At times.
Yeah, not always, but it's definitely playoff hockey is a whole nother level of speed, and some people wonder, well, why don't they play that why don't they play it all year round? Well, they would be dead.
Yeah, physically, it'd be insanity.
It would be way too much. So yeah, I would be looking out for the Kraken in this series, but the Stars are obviously been around longer.
Yep, the favorites.
Yes, they are definitely the favorites in that one. Moving back to the East, we've got the Devils and the Hurricanes. So Devils beat the Rangers in a very tight Game 7, and then the Hurricanes beat the Islanders in, I believe, 6. This one I don't really have a big leniency on. I think the Hurricanes are strong, but I think the Devils have that something weird about them where they can just hang with anybody. Let anyone hang around long enough, and they will get you eventually.
Yeah, I think both these teams, from my limited hockey that I've been watching this spring, they're both not teams that you watch them and you're like, wow, two incredible teams, two exciting teams, but they just seem to play sound hockey.
Correct.
And you can never it's bad to bet against a team that's just going to play solid hockey, defensively, offensively. So to me, I really also don't have a leniency, but
this is one the books are pretty close on. They've got Carolina correct. We've got Carolina minus 120 on Wednesday, so that's a pretty close one. But that's not what I'm going to touch on a whole lot. They are very, very similar teams. The Golden Knights and the Oilers, though, is our last matchup in the NHL playoffs that we've got. The Oilers beat the Kings. That was an exciting series, and the Golden Knights beat the Jets. Another, decent series. Nothing crazy. Everything was on the ones it's all the fun games we're playing tonight. So, the Oilers, Kings, we've got Edmonton Oilers minus 115. That's an even closer line. I'm looking at these stats here. Oilers won 50 games. Golden Knights won 51. Oilers had 109 points this year. Golden Knights had 111. It's just something that it feels like a coin flip.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree. I think I like the Oilers a little bit more just because I believe they're a little bit better on the offensive side. And I feel like that's something.
Well, who's the David
McDavid.
Yeah,
I don't know his first name. Yeah,
Connor
McDavid.
Absolute stallion of a hockey player. That guy is someone to look out for.
And I feel like this is one of those series where it's both teams are going to score a lot of goals. Both teams are not incredible defensively, but there's just a little more star power, it feels like, on the Oilers. And I feel like that's something that might shine through for them in this series. So I like the Oilers to get it done.
I personally agree. I think having a star player like that it's very crucial.
Yep.
Having someone you can turn to in that overtime or in that power play is a big deal. But yeah, so that's going to wrap up our NHL and NBA playoff kind of check in. Do you have any last words for us, Redbone?
Deuces.